While their movies make millions, sometimes even billions, at the box office, and their characters are known around the globe, some of Illumination's characters are more infamous than actually loved. Some characters are hated for being annoying or frustrating, others are just totally lame, and others are seen as terrible people that can't even be enjoyed in a love-to-hate-them sort of way. Today, we're going to break these characters down and see what exactly makes them so darn dislikable. I'm Kifinosi with Wicked Binge, and this is the worst Illumination characters and why they suck. Naturally, we're going to be starting with our least hated characters before working our way down to the most despised characters of Illumination history. We should also mention that while we have tried to incorporate fan opinions, this is all subjective at the end of the day, so if you're a fan of any of these characters, of course, feel free to continue being a fan, and if there are any worse characters you think that we've missed, let us know in the comments. With all that being said, let's get started. First up on our list, we have Gunter the Pig from Sing. Gunter is excitable and a true performer at heart, being all about showing off his piggy power while on stage and being a loyal dance partner to his friend Rosita. Unfortunately, Gunter didn't make the best first impression. Between the garish red jumpsuit and the Lady Gaga song, many people clocked him as being the annoying comic relief when they saw him in the film's first trailer. For some, this reputation didn't really go away, as many find his undying enthusiasm and over-the-top accent to be pretty obnoxious. For others, though, they've grown to love this pig, both for his fun dance moves and for just how supportive he proved to be. Additionally, while he does get a slightly bigger part in Sing 2, Gunter never really becomes a screen time hog. No pun intended. Piggy power! So he doesn't tend to overstay his welcome. Some fans still don't care for him much, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a person who absolutely despises him. Sure, maybe not all of his jokes land, but with how friendly and supportive he is, it can be hard to truly hate him. Next, we have the 80s-themed villain, Balthazar Bratt. Out of the many Despicable Me villains, Balthazar Bratt is probably one of the least liked. While he does still have some fans, for most people, he just can't compare to the manly spectacle that was El Macho, the wicked Scarlet Overkill, or the incredibly memeable Vector. As for potential reasons why we think one issue may just be his gimmick, 90% of this guy's jokes are just 80s references, which is a type of reference that people are very quickly getting burnt out on due to how prevalent they are.
You've ruined everything!
What's more, he has very little outside of this gimmick, making him come off as more silly instead of threatening. Another point against him could be his vocal performance, which was provided by South Park's Trey Parker. In a sense, he's just doing his Randy voice, and while this can be funny, others may easily find it obnoxious. We also feel like Bratt's coolness factor continuously dips as the movie goes on. His opening heist may be impressive, but not even his giant robot in the film's climax can do much to make us truly care about him or his plans. We'll admit that he's not completely terrible, and some people still may get a kick out of him. Regardless, he manages to land on the lower tier of Despicable Me baddies. Moving back over to the Sing franchise for a bit, let's talk about Mike the Mouse. Yeah, there are probably a few reasons why Mike didn't return for the sequel. Now, for the record, not every character who's a jerk is going to immediately be dislikable. In fact, sometimes jerk characters can be the most fun characters to follow. Unfortunately, that just isn't the case for Mike. He's obnoxious and a jerk, but it doesn't go far enough to cross into that love-to-hate territory we talked about. Instead, most audience members are just annoyed and frustrated with his antics. Additionally, outside of being voiced by Seth MacFarlane, there's very little that's memorable about him, making Mike come off as a flat character.
Oh, it's not winning, it's the taking part that counts, yeah.
He's got his jerkiness, and he's got his Frank Sinatra-esque singing, which, to be fair, is pretty great thanks to Seth's own singing talents. His best scene is easily when he sings My Way, but you'd be hard-pressed to find any other scenes of his that people actually like. Next up is the mischievous bunny, Snowball. Like with Mike, Snowball's role as the first film's antagonist is more of a detriment to his character than anything else. He may provide a bit of dark humor, which some people may like, but others may get annoyed at how unthreatening and lame he is as a so-called villain. This does change in the second film where he becomes a cape-wearing superhero, but we'd argue that it didn't really change anyone's opinion of him. He's still just the same overzealous bunny, he's just not trying to kill humans anymore. Another reason why others may find Snowball annoying is simply because of his voice. Viper! Which is provided by a high-pitched Kevin Hart. Don't get us wrong, we like Kevin Hart just fine, but his shtick can be a hit or miss at times. All in all, Snowball is forgettable at best and annoying at worst, and either of these reactions from audiences earns him a spot on this list. You knew he was going to be somewhere on this list. Next up, we have the Once-ler. Let's just address the Horton elephant in the room. For many animation fans who grew up online, it's hard to look at this guy without being reminded of all the chaos surrounding him from the fangirl-filled sites like Tumblr. For as many people as there were who loved and who were obsessed with the Once-ler. There were just as many people who hated seeing him everywhere and who just didn't get the appeal. Speaking of that, for some audience members, the Once-ler was just a desperate attempt to woobify a Seuss villain who previously had more depth to him and was much more realistic, as shown in the 1972 animated Lorax special. Additionally, many felt it was in bad taste to fully personify the Once-ler, giving him a face and turning him into an actual character when originally he was meant to symbolize big corporations while also representing the idea that anyone could choose to either hurt or help the environment.
No?
Because Illumination humanized him so much, many felt that the point of his character was completely missed for the sake of giving audiences a more likable and adorkable character. But even with all this, we can't completely hate him, even if only because his musical numbers, both in the film and in the deleted scenes, are admittedly pretty great. Sticking with our Seuss characters, we just have to mention the Grinch. This was an unfortunate case of forced comparison, as many audience members just couldn't help but compare him to Jim Carrey's version of the Grinch, a performance that managed to be much more memorable, hilarious, and true to the spirit of a character who's supposed to hate Christmas. Illumination's Grinch, meanwhile, just kind of feels like tofu. He's given a sad backstory and anxiety issues to make him more relatable, but that makes him come off as a completely different character than what he's supposed to be, to the point where many have pointed out how the lyrics in "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" barely match him at all with how cute and sympathetic and mildly mean the Grinch is portrayed in this film.
And happiness will be gone as well.
To make a character like the Grinch so unthreatening and toothless almost ruins him, turning him into a boring shadow of what he's meant to be. We will say, however, that for some people, making him more sympathetic did work somewhat. We've even heard several people say that the movie still managed to make them cry in the end thanks to the Grinch's ending speech, even if the Grinch himself was somewhat lackluster for the rest of the movie. Following him is actually another Lorax villain, Aloysius O'Hare. While the Once-ler at least had personality and memorability, there was, I'd say, absolutely nothing memorable nor enjoyable about this guy. He was about as cartoony of a villain as you could get, feeling more like a Captain Planet villain than anything else. Between his goofy design, over-the-top vocal performance, and overall lack of presence, O'Hare just wasn't threatening at all.
Oh, really?
He also wasn't very funny, with the exception of his "Let It Die" line in the film's final song. That was actually pretty funny. Still, when your character's only redeeming quality is one line at the very end of your film, you kinda have a problem. Making O'Hare even more disappointing is that he truly just can't compare to the Once-ler. He's not menacing, he's not fun, he's not interesting, he's just a guy who takes up screen time and acts as an obstacle for Ted and the others. He's a bare minimum antagonist, and it truly shows. Kicking off our bottom three, we have the Minions. Which ones? Pretty much all of them, as the fans who hate them have a hard time telling them apart anyway. Depending on who you ask, these guys are either the funniest characters in Despicable Me or the worst characters ever created. While we personally don't mind their antics too much, it can't be denied just how easily they can come off as annoying, obnoxious, and brainless when written in a lazy way. For as many clever and genuinely funny jokes as there are with them, there are just as many cheap laughs involving gibberish or farts. Many have praised the use of Looney Tunes and the Three Stooges-esque slapstick with the Minions, but this type of humor can only be used for so long before it starts to feel repetitive. Probably the biggest negative many can claim about the Minions is simply that they take up so much screen time, taking it away from more interesting characters like Gru, and causing the main plots of the films to sometimes feel rushed or shallow because there wasn't enough time given to them, being instead used for more Minion jokes. In some ways, it's not necessarily the Minions themselves that are bad, just how they're used throughout the Despicable Me franchise. Sometimes the worst thing you can do with your characters is simply show them too much love, especially when they were only ever meant to be cute comedy relief. For our runner-up most disliked Illumination character, we have Gru's long-lost twin brother, Drew. Speaking of annoying, this is another case of that being a character's worst sin. Steve Carell turns his Gru voice up to 11 whenever he voices Drew, making it higher pitched, whinier, and just all around more obnoxious. It's a shame, as films like the first Despicable Me and Rise of Gru show just how well Carell can do the voice, and also how much heart and emotion he can put into it. But Drew's voice, on the other hand, it sounds more like a parody or a mockery of the Gru voice than anything else. Maybe that's what they were going for, but I still don't like it. Between the voice and the lazy long-lost sibling plot, it was no surprise that many were turned off of Drew before they even saw the third Despicable Me film. Unfortunately, the film itself doesn't do Drew many favors, as it becomes very hard for him to stand out from his brother. Gru has proven himself to be interesting and likable, while Drew feels shallow and flat, not really having much outside of trying and failing to be a villain. Many also feel that Drew just completely drags the plot, not being able to add much outside of mild conflict and a few lame jokes. And given that we haven't seen nor heard from him since the third film, Illumination may have taken the hint. Now, we don't know the plot of Despicable Me 4 yet, but we wouldn't be too surprised if Drew isn't going to be included in it, outside of maybe a cameo. We've finally arrived at who we consider to be Illumination's most disliked character, EB from Hop. When it came to Illumination's first and so far only live-action animated hybrid movie, not very many people enjoyed it. One of the reasons cited for this distaste easily has to be the incredibly immature EB. When he's not being annoying, he's just being generic, having the same character arc as many other young, dream-chasing kid movie protagonists before him. Maybe audiences could forgive his unoriginality if he were more fun or likable.
Why do you hate me?
Unfortunately, EB manages to be neither of these things. In fact, he can be pretty selfish, to the point where he ends up getting his friend in trouble without really thinking of the consequences. It also ends up taking him several hours to finally go and set things right, in spite of the guilt he feels. This rabbit is so focused on his own goals that he fakes his death, not really caring how news of this would affect his dad. That's cold. Scenes like the I Want Candy sing-along scene, him lying to Fred so he'd let him stay, wrecking the bathroom the next day, and ruining Fred's job interview are all scenes that just make EB come off as obnoxious and incredibly unlikable. He isn't very funny, nor is he really all that sympathetic for most of the movie, with people having very few positive things to say about him and about this film in general. We felt it was only appropriate to award EB the title of the worst Illumination character. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos.